Now let's stay with retailers for a second, because I think this is something that that's important to understand as we look at these in terms of their likely exit value. Let's just pretend that there is a good product here, that tea from the top of a mountain in Nepal, and the entrepreneur thinks that it should belong on the shelf at $6. Maybe they've got some research to show that. Maybe it's the result of their P&L. Maybe that's just where the competitors are. So they go to the trade buyer, probably a brick and mortar buyer, and say, if I want it on the shelf at $6, what will you want to pay? Now, most commonly, the answer in the high growth food and beverage departments in a grocery environment is that it's a 50% gross margin. Some categories are less, a little bit more in others, but that's a pretty typical number. And sometimes that's also split with a wholesaler and a distributor. But the bottom line is, if it's going to ring at 6, you should be prepared for gross revenue of only 3. But the retailer's not done with you. They're going to expect you to promote the product. And that's the 50 cents or $1 off for periods of time, buy one, get one free. Maybe you're in their mailer or their Sunday ad, something like that. A good budget for that on a going basis is 20% of sales. On a year one basis, it can be even more. But let's stick with the 20 and say that they can get by with that. Now your net revenue is down to 240. Well, you're still not done paying because you have to make it. And most of these, maybe 9 out of 10 that I see, are going to have a co-packer. That's somebody who sources the ingredients, puts the product together, gets it all ready for you to ship it out to your customer's warehouse. The better products and the better P&Ls that I see are around a 50% gross margin at this level. In other words, you're paying somebody 50% of whatever your net revenue is for them to produce it for you. Sometimes you see higher gross margins, which is great, except when they're so high that the price point gets jacked up to the point there's going to be a problem getting trial or competing. Sometimes you see them too low. Down at the 30s is not uncommon. And that's a problem, too, because you can see from this waterfall, it's pretty hard to make money. The retailer and the co-packer is keeping a lot of it. And so if you have a low gross margin to start with, it's going to be a real struggle. And, of course, that 50%, in this case, $1.20, is the money you need to execute your marketing plan. It's the money you need to ship the product out to your trade customers. You've got to pay your own people, ideally have some free cash flow. And then finally, for a food and beverage business, it's a really hard business to bank. Bankers are not going to look at your inventory as collateral because it's perishable. There's not much resale value for it. So most of these companies are going to have to self-finance their working capital as they grow. It's another call on their cash flow. I tend to rule out things that start with a gross margin that are less than 40%, with a promise that we're going to fix this with scale. As soon as we get a little bigger, when we get that A-round money, we'll start seeing accretion in the gross margin. The problem there is that food companies don't tend to get scale economies until they're buying a truckload of their main raw material or they're shipping a truckload of their finished product. That comes much later. Also, if you have a co-packer, the co-packer is going to keep that scale economy, maybe give some to you if they're nice, but it's not going to necessarily wind up on your P&L. So I'm going to shift now to talk about what I think are the good things that we should all look for. And let's start with a good CPG play. Any company that manufactures is automatically more interesting to me because they'll probably have a right to keep 10 or 20 more gross margin points. That's the cash flow that the co-packer probably would keep from making their product. And so that helps them build their own cash flow and de-risk. The other thing that unlocks, if they're the manufacturer, is the ability to use the unsold capacity in the plant to do other things, to put somebody else's label on their products, like a store brand, to be the co-packer for other people. And that ability not only drives cash flow, but it also gives you a way to level out the peaks and valleys of your own business and keep your payroll.